Cunningham, and we're about to get started with this meeting of the SPA-X committee. We're going to probably be going from around 6:30 to 9, and we'll be hearing from a couple different speakers. And we're going to start off with Nicole, who's going to give us a rundown of the events and goings-on of SPA-X. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. So tonight I wanted to start with kind of a casual presentation. I wanted to talk to you guys and get some feedback from you and just kind of hear what you think. I know a lot of you are from different universities from around, so how many of you have heard of SPA-X before? You can just raise your hand. Honestly, if you haven't, that's fine. How many of you have heard of SPAC? How many of you have no idea what these letters are that I'm saying and shouting out, and that's perfectly fine. Great. So what do you think? I don't know, anybody who does or doesn't have an idea, what do you think SPA-X is? Go ahead.
Student professional awareness, I have no idea what the X is.
I actually like that. It's a pretty close to the real definition. Anybody else? All right, so I'll start with, why are we here, who we are type of thing, and we'll dive right into this a little bit. So we are from, a lot of us around here tonight are from the IEEE USA Student Professional Awareness Committee. And part of what I wanted to point out is, well, basically, who do you think we are, the people on the committee? Anybody answer the question? Go ahead.
A resource to use in case we want to find our own SPA or SPAC.
Well, that's great, but I was looking for something a little more generic. I don't know, do we get paid to do this? Are we sitting in an office, working on this all the time? Sorry?
Very generous people that their spare time and actually help. Or they don't have their time, but they're helping us and they're using their time to help us.
Well, I like that. But okay, thank you. Trying to say is, and we're going to talk probably a little bit more as we network later tonight after this, is we're basically you guys, or we were you guys for a few years ago for some of us, and a lot of people on our committee are actually students right now too. So I wanted to kind of make that clear that we are volunteers just like all of you sitting here in this room, and that's an important thing to remember. Just as you get involved with anything in IEEE, there's lots of opportunities out there to do different things that you're really interested in. So, SPA-X. It's working. I like this quote. It's a pretty great quote. Talented people, they're just one skill away from goodwill. And it's a very interesting point because it's not saying that you need to be really, really good at the one thing that you want to do in school. You're all coming out with engineering or engineering-related degrees from school. And how many of you in here already have a job lined up? Working or set? Okay, and that's fine. Now, how many of you want to have a job? So, do you think just coming out of school and getting your degree is all you need? You'd be really good at it. Because you wouldn't be sitting in this room tonight if you thought that, because you are people that are very involved in IEEE and other things. So the way we look at it is there's one really big skill that's missing. You want to take a stab at that?
Networking?
Yes. What does that fall under?
Soft skills?
Yes, which is professional awareness. That's a very simple way to put it. It's all of those soft skills that you don't necessarily learn in school in the classroom. You can learn it in school through programs, but not just through sitting in a class. So to me, this is an interesting one because when I graduated, the market wasn't bad. I had an internship. It was at a company that wasn't actually hiring. So that was kind of an unfortunate scenario for me. But basically, while I was there, they had a lot of interns, but they had never hired an intern because of this situation. And we had different things going on at the time, and I found different projects to get involved in. And there's one skill that all engineers are notoriously good at, right? Communicating? Yeah, no. Again, many of you in here are probably the exception to that, and that's because you've gotten involved in a lot of other things. But for me, that was a place I was able to excel a little bit in. I was able to work on documents to communicate how processes worked and how things worked within the company so that people in different departments were able to work on that, create a whole system for them to do that. And they saw a lot of value in that on top of me actually doing my basic job. And I was able to get them to hire me as a full-time person when they hadn't been able to do that before. So there's a lot of opportunities to use these professional awareness skills that you might not even think are obvious. So even if you get your foot in the door, to still stand out amongst your peers, there's a lot of value to that, and that's where SPA-X comes in. So, we kind of touched on this a little bit. What is SPA-X? There's a little bit of confusion about that around the room, and that's perfectly fine. So, student professional awareness experience, to answer your question on that X. And you can put that into real terms there. I won't read that fully to you, that's fine. Basically, giving people an experience to engage them. We don't want to just put people in a classroom, read a book, and that's not how you learn professional awareness. We want to give them the ability to create a program that works for their school. So that's where this falls in. And basically there's all these professional awareness topics, and if you're familiar with SPAC, all of these topics were under SPAC, and basically the whole point of all of SPA-X is we were updating the program from just a conference format. And you go to a room, you talk, you sit there and you listen to someone talk. So we wanted to give everybody the ability to do what works for their student body, because every university is different. So all of these topic areas fall under SPA-X as they did for SPAC, but we want to engage more student members and learn non-technical skills, explore new adventure or avenues for delivering content, which is where we're getting with the X, and experience, design and create an experience that demonstrate your unique insight and talents. So, what's in it for me, right? Because that's what all students are going to ask, and honestly anybody's going to ask, because as students, you're busy. You have classes, you have internships, and many other things you're working on. So by planning a SPA-X, as you can talk to people like Jonathan here tonight and Kevin, who worked on this event, and planning the whole activity, they know that they gained leadership skills, job potential, all the networking that's going on this whole weekend, all of these great pieces that are selfish, but that's okay, because you deserve it for putting all the effort into this. Events like this, who can they impact? So as students, you kind of act as the connection between the faculty, your local companies, entrepreneurs, the society around you, because you're going out there and you're bringing them in. You have two speakers here tonight that one is local and one isn't, and you actually reached out quite a bit for that, and that's something we'll touch on later too, that is a way that you can connect and impact a whole lot of people. So, X. What is that X that we don't know what it is type of piece? So yes, you can hold a student professional awareness conference. People come, they listen to someone talk about how they can get these skills. And tonight's event is a little bit like that, but you're going to see they have a lot of interactive sessions going on too. So if it works for your student branch to have someone come in and talk, that's great. We have some amazing national speakers, and you'll see two of them tonight, that will come in and do that for you. But maybe it's better to go on a tour. Go on a tour of a facility. Maybe there's some really cool manufacturing plants that do some cool automation. That was my area of focus, so I like that stuff. It's very neat to watch. Maybe there's a startup that you can go out to that's doing something really cool, especially around this area. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Maybe you want to do a week-long event or a weekend-long event with a conference going on this whole thing, this whole time. So there's a lot of things you can do. You can get creative with it. If you somehow think that whitewater rafting has some great team building activities out there and you can justify it, we can talk about it and see if that best suits your needs. And not saying that it will, but we go from there. So it gives you the freedom to really solve for how that works. So I'm not going to bore you with all the steps here or walk through it, but basically it's a very simple process, and you can talk to the students here from MIT that did work on this with us. But you basically, we're here to help you as a committee, the volunteers, because that are here tonight. And we're there to help you with your planning, with ideas, things you can do in your events. But also, we have either some funding support or national speakers, which is essentially funding from our standpoint. We can send somebody out to your university to give a presentation if that fits your event, or we can help with some funding towards that event as well. And yes, the number 5 on there is to have fun, because it should be fun. It's a very rewarding experience. I mean, putting this all together and seeing it come to fruition, but it's hard, but it's fun. So, make your mark, hold your SPA X at your school, and engage, explore, and experience. And so we have our website, which is very easy to remember, IEEE.org/SPAX. But there's something even bigger I wanted to point out. So with this new program that we came out with from our committee, we're kind of evolving. I mean, we realized that the whole reason we made this change was because the students asked for it. You guys asked for it. You said, I don't want to go sit in a conference all day. I do that all day long. I sit and listen to lectures. And that's why we started to make this change. However, we know with any big change, there's always feedback, good and bad. And as we're developing the program, and we want to hear that, and we want to hear what ideas you guys have, what maybe troubles you've had with the process, anyone who has done an SPAC before, there was a couple of you, or just what you'd like to see, or any ideas, or if you want to get more involved. So tomorrow, we are having a committee meeting right here in this room all day, and I know there's a lot going on with the conference. I believe in the schedule there's a gap at 3:30, so if you are interested, feel free. We'd love to have you come back at 3:30 tomorrow. Don't feel shy. We want you to participate in it, and we're gonna, like I said, be here for a little bit longer to network with you guys with the event that Jonathan's got. So be sure to touch base with us if you aren't going to be able to be here, and we want to hear from you. So thank you.
Hey all, so we're going to start off with Krenar now. Krenar is going to be, as I said earlier, talking about student leadership and entrepreneurship. So yeah, I'm going to hand it over to Krenar.
Hi everybody. I'll just wait for everybody to sit down first, I guess. Food is number 1 on the priority list, always. Heading out? Okay. All right, thanks Joe. Thanks for the introduction. How's everybody doing tonight?
Awesome.
Awesome. You guys are excited for a great talk? We got to make it as little boring as possible, as boring as possible. My name's Krenar. I've simply put, I've done a lot of entrepreneurship work in my life after I graduated from college, and I've worked for around 8 startups already. Started some of my own and worked for various ones too. So that's my background. It's always been on startups. I've never worked for a large established corporation. I've consulted for some, but I've never actually worked for them. I'm in the industry, just as a background in the wireless industry, and look what I'm doing today. I'm going to use wire to actually change my slides. So this is exciting. One thing I always like to ask, what do you guys think is the first thing, if you want to be successful, what do you think will increase your chances the most? The first thing you can actually, the simplest thing you can do if you want to make a deal, or if you want to go to an interview, or you want to get a job. What's the first thing you need to do?
Confidence is something you need to have.
Confidence, definitely. That's good.
Demonstrate your passion.
Demonstrate passion. These will all be in the slides. That's awesome. Anything else?
Seek it, like look for it.
Exactly. You want to increase? All right, you want to increase your chances, 85% chance of success, you just need to show up. You're ahead of 85% of the people if you just showed up. The people who showed up here are 85% chance of actually seeing this talk than the rest, and you're so closer to success. But to get to 90%, you need to show up on time. A lot of people show up late, and that's actually, if you're not on time, you're late. You always be, if you're not early, you're late. So you want to be there on time, you want to be there early, and you want to show up. But besides showing up on time, there's another thing you need to do. You need to show up on time and with a plan. And then you're 95% chance of success, and you're really actually close to success, whether it's getting an interview, closing a deal, you're prepared for that interview, you showed up, and you showed up early. Everybody respects that. And then the last thing, to get to 100%, I'm going to leave it for the end of the slide, the presentation. So, 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 1 IEEE, let's talk a little bit about IEEE. How many of you know what IEEE stands for? Go ahead.
Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers.
How many think that that's what it stands for today? They've changed it. So that's actually what it used to be, but now the branding is that it's just being called IEEE. And the reason is because it started as being the Institute of Electronics and Electrical Engineers, but now it does so many more things than just electronics and electrical engineering. It has biomedical, it has energy, it has power, it has chemistry, so it's just more than, and right now they just call it IEEE. So the mission is really to foster technological innovation. They've done all the standards that you can think of almost, whether it's Wi-Fi, Zigbee, and many other standards that start with 802 dot have come up from IEEE. There are 850 conferences worldwide, 30+% of all the technical publications that are published come from IEEE in the world. So it's a very exciting organization. There's a lot of things happening, and one of the things that is happening is a Student Professional Awareness Committee, and you guys organizing the Student Professional Awareness Conference is really good. So what is some of the things on technical areas? Like I said, it's not only on electronics and electrical engineering. Now it's got circuits and systems is really big. If you look at all the publications when it comes to chip design, because that's kind of my background, and this is one of the solid state circuit journals that I read, there's a lot of new circuit work that comes out. All the new Intel chips, all the new Qualcomm radios. Sometimes engineers from those teams go in this journal and publish them for the first time to the world. That's very exciting. There's computer engineering, biomedical technology, aerospace. There's a lot of other journals that IEEE has. There are 10 regions in IEEE. We are somewhere between region 1 and 6. Do you guys know what region is this?
1.
1. That's right. Massachusetts is in region 1. This is the total IEEE membership. I don't have the latest numbers, but this shows that in 2014 it was around 426,000. So it's constantly growing. And one thing to note is that the growth is really happening outside of US. And I'm sure this curve in the next 3 years is just diverging it more and more. And if you look at regions 7 to 10, they're really growing fast. And the reason is because it's new. IEEE hasn't really penetrated as much as we penetrated here in US, and new members are just joining a lot. And that's the membership outside of US is really growing. What I want to talk about now, so you guys here at IEEE, and essentially how does IEEE at MIT help you and the leadership here at IEEE at MIT, or how does that help in your future and in your career? So what is the leadership? I guess this is one thing that Peter Drucker was a really well-known management. He wrote a lot on innovation and marketing. He has a really good book on innovation and marketing, and that's what he believes those are the two key stones for any business to succeed. But this is what he says about management and leadership. What do you guys think leadership is? You don't have to just say what that it says there. Go ahead.
Getting some others to do what they don't really want to do.
Okay, that's good.
Probably true.
Anything else?
Setting an example.
Setting an example?
Having the courage to take risks and do what others won't.
Yes, and that's a lot about entrepreneurship and courage to take risks. And Peter Drucker here says something really good. Management is doing things right. So you have a task, you have a project, and you do it the best possible way, the most optimized way, and you do that thing right. But doing the right things, making sure that that team is focused on the right area, making sure that the team is doing the right tasks that need to be done to actually increase the value of that business, that's leadership. And leaders, in this case, I'm talking about students and leadership and student branches, but this applies in companies, it applies in volunteer organizations and everywhere, is when you tell your employees or students or volunteers, you don't want to tell them how to do things. You want to tell them what to do. You set that example, you set that vision, and then they Let them be free, believe in them, trust them, that they actually will deliver and do the best that they can. If you micromanage and tell people how to do things, might as well do it yourself. And if you do everything yourself and not delegate, you're never going to grow. Establish a vision and a mission. Those are very important for a company or IEEE student branch. You want to establish that vision of, okay, why are we doing what we're doing? What is the purpose of this company? What is the purpose of the branch? Who you guys really want to become? You want to become the #1 social network in the world, or, and the mission is, how do you actually do that? Get up every day and work hard to achieve that vision. And the mission is the steps that you take actually to achieve that vision. And you can set those up. There's a lot of articles online. There's a lot of things online actually on how to set up visions and missions. But something you're really passionate about and you want to change something, you set that vision and you constantly communicate it. Do not criticize nor complain. Now, when I say criticize, constructive criticism is good. But just criticizing and complaining doesn't get you anywhere. There's a really good, how many of you guys know about Y Combinator? Okay, excellent. You know Sam Altman, he's the chair of Y Combinator and runs that. He wrote a thing called the Playbook on what it takes to actually to do a startup, from idea to team to execution. And one of the things he says is that do not hire negative people. And it's so true. If somebody's negative in your company, in your branch, there's so much you can do with volunteer organizations. But in a company and a business, negative people always pretty much drown the whole team. There's so much negative energy. There's no purpose to go forward. Might as well fire them as fast as you can. So hire slow. Take a long time hiring people, and fire them fast if they're not delivering, if they're really changing the atmosphere and the culture. The culture should always be positive, should always be about achieving things and doing things, not about complaining. In life, there's a lot of things that are difficult, especially when you start a company. People think that, oh, you go online, you make a Kickstarter campaign, you get $1 million, and you're suddenly a success. But the problem is 85% or more of those companies actually don't deliver on time. Actually, 100% don't deliver on time. And then 85% or more actually fail because it's hard work. It's a lot of work and execution actually to deliver those. Just making a bright splash and going out on media campaigns, it's beautiful, it's fun, it's egotistic, it's amazing for you for that. It's a good spike of excitement for a couple of weeks or a month or 2 months, but after that it's a lot of work. And to have a team that's very positive and upbeat, you need to do that. So give credit, praise good work. Every time you see good work, every time that somebody does an excellent job, praise that. Especially when I'm IEEE student branch, I used to go to Norwich University. I ran the IEEE student branch there. We did like 20-something projects in a year. We had the most active branch ever, and once we organized these huge events, I would always bring the whole team together and just go to the engineering department and get mugs, get pens, get whatever, and just give them out and praise really good work. Always praise good work. It doesn't cost anything to praise good work. Compliments are free, but be genuine. Be genuine, otherwise there's no reason to, if you constantly say somebody, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, it doesn't get anywhere. It's about saying thank you once and really meaning it when they really deserve it. Meetings. There's many meetings that you guys will get to go to once you join companies when there are no agenda and nobody's taking any minutes. And what happens is suddenly out of your 8 hours, 2-3 hours on the day are just gone in meetings and nothing is done. The key is every time you organize meetings, or if you have meetings, whether it's a student branch or in a company, even if you're a junior employee, even if you just started there, go in there with an agenda. They might laugh, but it doesn't matter. Go in there with an agenda, at least that way people know what the meeting is about, what's going to be achieved, and who will actually achieve those tasks. That just shows leadership, shows organizational skills, and it shows that you're here to get things done. And it's not about just sitting around a table, brainstorming, and no action at the end. Share thoughts, ideas. When you're a leader, you constantly want to communicate. That's the #1 purpose of leadership, is communication. That's the #1 thing you need to do constantly, is to communicate. And the reason is because you get to really understand what other people are thinking when you share your ideas and thoughts. You want to be almost actually 100% transparent about what you're doing in the company and where the company is going, because employees want to be really part of that vision. And the team really has to be part of that vision, so you want to be really transparent with them. And the only way to do that is through communication. And you understand what they're thinking, then you change yourself. There's a really good, not a book, but a journal called The Principles by Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is an investor. He has the largest hedge fund in the world, $160 billion. And there he writes about the principles that he's learned in a company and how to live by. And also he shares that with his employees. And the reason that their company, Bridgewater Associates, in my opinion, is #1 in the world, the largest hedge fund, $160 billion, always growth in the last 20-something years. I believe they only had 1 year where they were down minus 3%, and that was when the stock market crashed in 2007, 2008. And the reason is because the principles he lives by is 100% transparency, 100% honesty, and truth. And even the most difficult conversations that employees have to have with each other, whether it's emotional conversations, they do them, they attack them right there at the moment, and they essentially just figure out how to deal with that. And they go to the truth of everything. The only way to get to the truth is when there's no bureaucracy and there's no politics. What you're going to experience is when you guys go and get jobs is there's going to be a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of politics. If that's the company you're in, I suggest the best thing to do is try and change it. If you succeed, that's amazing. If not, go somewhere where there's 100% transparency. That's the only way you enjoy life. That's the only way you enjoy work. You're spending 8 hours a day in work, maybe more, maybe 10, maybe 12. It's almost all your life working, working, working. You want to do something you're passionate about. And the only way to do that is working for someone who understands that about you and is 100% transparent with you. Otherwise, there's no point, right? Oh, and start your own business. That's another way. And you can then use those ideas and share them with the employees and share them with your partners and see if they fit in that culture. I believe that's the best culture you can actually have to grow companies. What are some of the reasons, though, people fail to achieve their goals, or companies fail to achieve their goals, or student branches fail to achieve their goals?
Improper planning or resources?
No resources, okay. What type of resources?
Time, money, and effort.
Time, money, effort. So close. So no resources, and always top of the list, always on top of the list. Every talk I've been to is time and money. Time and money. I have no time, I have no money. You want to achieve this? I have no time and money. In my opinion, that's just something in your head that's not letting you achieve what your goal is and where you want to get to. This is what we did at Norwich. We organized a casino night. Casino night, casinos obviously and gambling are illegal. But what we did is we created raffle tickets, people who actually gambled with blackjack and played Russian roulette, no? Played roulette and other games. They actually got to win more raffles. So the more raffle tickets they won, they had chance of winning PlayStation, Xbox, TVs. So we had around $2,000, $3,000 worth of prizes. And at the end of the night, we would make $2,000, $3,000. Because around all of the school, almost 200-300 people would show up. That's all when I say that's like 20% of the school, because it's not a large school, would show up and play this game. It was a lot of fun. And IEEE, and we were also collaborating with Tau Beta Pi, and we would make a lot of money. So there's always a way. We would do movie nights. That's me over there. I used to have a ponytail. We would do movie nights, and we would go and set up. I don't know if you guys have movies where they show within campus, and you can just maybe set up a stand where you can sell candy, and candy is like crazy profit margins, because $1 candy you buy it for like 25 cents or something, and we would make like $200, $300, $400 every weekend. especially on popcorn, which is like 97% profit margin. So the key really is resourcefulness. If there is a will, there is a way. Meetings can run without pizza. If there's a will, there's a way. Again, the way you get to get to people to a meeting is really by talking to them. Let's say there's a meeting on Thursday, you meet somebody on Monday, you tell them, remind them. You meet on Tuesday, you remind them again. Wednesday, you remind them again. And the moment you get a yes from them or a commitment, they will be there on Thursday. There is no doubt about that. But you constantly share that's all you're thinking about, that's what you want to do. That Thursday meeting is so important, and you want to grow that organization or that company or that student branch. I was also a president of Tau Beta. How many of you know of Tau Beta Pi? Okay. So I was president at Norwich University of Tau Beta Pi, and that year we organized the most projects in the country, and we won the most outstanding chapter award out of 230 colleges in the country that were part of the Tau Beta Pi. That was really a good honor. It was a lot of fun, and it just shows that if you really want to do something, you can do it. This is when we went from Norwich, which is Vermont, and drove with a van all the way to Boston Museum of Science and had a nice trip. So this is what we would do with the money. The next thing, this is more on the student branch, and some organizations also where you only have a certain amount of time to lead. People usually lead for a year or two, but they don't leave, then they leave and everything falls apart. And the reason is because there is no succession planning. You really want to think about the future and who's the next leader. You want to talk to them. You want to see what their visions are, what your visions are about the organizations, see if that actually fits. And it would be great if that person becomes a leader. And if you really see that, they will become the next president of IEEE or the next CEO of a company or the next vice president of a department. It just happens that way. And you want to leave a legacy when you leave. What we did at Norwich, we left this book called The Unwritten Rules of IEEE. And it was a book about things that you would never think about, where to go get money, kind of things that you learn as you go, but the new leader wouldn't know necessarily. So they would read this and they would understand, okay, this is how you actually get to go to, this is the department you get to go and ask for money. This is the department that gives you $500 a year, and if you didn't know, you wouldn't get it. So all these little things you can write there, and it's a really good contribution that we did. This is a year later, in 2007. Norwich is a private military college. It's the first in the country, and you can see a bunch of military guys who are either cadets or Corps of Cadets, or some are in and some go to military. 50% of Norwich University cadets go into the military, 50% go into private business. So this is a year later, and John there is the president, and it was still running and going. It was exciting to see this. They sent me this picture a year later. You guys are undergrad students, and how many are undergrad actually? Excellent. Seniors? Junior? Sophomore? Probably. Okay, good. And freshman? Awesome. That's awesome. And he's doing all the work. Of course, freshman. So career after MIT. And I always leave that after whatever school I give it. And I use an example of my career after my undergrad. And this is what happened. I left Norwich University and I started as an intern when I was a junior at a company called Bitwave Semiconductor. It was a startup based in Lowell, Massachusetts. They raised $50-something million. Now the company doesn't exist. But it was a really good experience. The founder of Bitwave was a Norwich grad. That's how I got hired as an intern. They interviewed all the engineers at Norwich and picked me and another guy, and then I continued to stay at the company. And then later I got accepted to Tufts, finished my master's, and I finished all my PhD classes. Now I just have left my thesis to do at Tufts, and been busy with so many other things, and hopefully I get that done too. But how is MIT beneficial? So how many of you actually have taken circuit classes? Okay. Verilog VHDL? Beautiful. Electronics? Obviously. MATLAB? Obviously. Signal processing? Obviously. Okay, awesome. So what did I do at MATLAB, at Bitwave? Bitway was designing a cell phone chip that would work across the world. It's called a software-defined radio. They would just change it by software. They would change it from GSM to LTE to Edge to GPRS to WCDMA, so 2G, 3G, 4G, also Wi-Fi, wireless LAN, and other standards, all in one chip. And Qualcomm does that today with WCDMA and LTE and even 2G, but we were trying to do that back then in 2005, 2006. So if you look inside an iPhone, this is the old iPhone. I can update it. I should update it. But Steve is not there anymore. That's why I leave this slide. So if you look at the iPhone, there's radios. That's the most important thing. Without communication, without wireless communication, that iPhone would be pretty much nothing. Maybe you can read notes, read books if you download them with the USB cable. But that's the whole thing. 3G radios. If you can look at it inside 3G radio, there are, back then used to be an UMTS transceiver, which is a 3G transceiver. And if you look at our integrated transceiver, there's a bunch of blocks there. All these, today if you look at a Qualcomm chip or Samsung even makes chips, Intel chip, have all these components in transistor level. So you have a chip that does all these things. It takes the signal from the air, it down converts it, from analog, then it converts it to digital. That digital is voice, is data, is your WhatsApp smiley faces, it's your iMessages, everything. YouTube videos, all of that goes through there. That's where Verilog and signal and processing happens. That's where your classes are valuable, on digital baseband. If you want to do filters and digital processing, so because when you get that signal, let's say it has a lot of noise, you have to filter it. All those filters, digital filters, people today design in MATLAB and signal processing, and you guys have taken those classes. Electronics and circuit classes are all about the amplifiers, op-amps. I mean, that's your basic building blocks. Op-amps, right? So the amplifiers, mixers are all there, and you've taken that class. So these classes you're taking, sometimes you think, are they really beneficial? They're very beneficial and go directly into what people do to deliver products today. And then the whole thing, that was my task, to do a full MATLAB simulation of the whole RF transceiver. And that's where the MATLAB classes and MATLAB skills you have, you can actually apply. And then when you do your masters, you really dive into one thing, and that was the mixer. And then I dove into just 4 transistors, and I looked at what happens at these over technology when they go from like 250 nanometer, 0.25 micron, all the way down to 18 nanometer technology, and what happens to all the performance limitations and specs of this mixer as that technology is driven down. So how many of you are thinking of going for grad school? Or okay, and going direct to work, career? Okay, that's good. Okay, now jumping into entrepreneurship. I guess the first question is, what is entrepreneurship? We talked a little bit about leadership, but what do you guys think entrepreneurship is?
Doing something somebody else might think is crazy.
Good. Go ahead.
Starting from nothing, I mean, building something from the beginning.
Exactly. So starting and creating a new business, taking an innovation, a new idea, but it takes some financial skills, some business skills to actually turn it into dollars. And if the best way to put it is this, new idea into business. And business, I've put dollar signs because at the end of the day, it's not about just having an idea and open a business. That's great. Maybe you can do a lot of volunteer work like that. But if you want a business, you have to start making money. And to do that is not as easy as people think. And that playbook by Sam Altman really does a really good job about from idea to team to execution to actually building a business and what does it take to actually make money. So if you just Google playbook Sam Altman, it would be very good read for you guys. So is the idea the only important, if you look at successful businesses, what do you think is the #1 reason businesses succeed, essentially also fail? So why do businesses succeed? What's the one ingredient that they do well? Then is it the team? Is it the idea? What is it?
Planning.
Planning. That's okay.
Their mission supports their vision.
Okay. Yeah, but mission, it has to do something with what we're going to, yeah?
They're getting to market, their go-to-market strategy. Or
That's strategy, but that's again planning and strategy, thinking about things, that's good.
They fail quickly and get over it.
They fail quickly and get over it,
They
that's
learn
good.
from it.
Well, what is something that is driving all this? Like, what is something that you have an idea, but to get an idea into business, what do you need to do?
Take action.
Action?
Execution.
Execution. This slide tells you all about, you love numbers, I love numbers. This is, you have a great idea, wonderful idea. Terrible execution, you're losing money. You are literally losing money. If you have a beautiful execution team, brilliant execution team, an awful idea, you're losing money. If you have the best idea in the world, you're going to change the world with that idea, but your execution is not good, that thing is worth 20 bucks. And I can give it to you today and wonderful, because that idea, whatever idea you have today, is worth $20. But if you have the brilliant execution and a brilliant idea, it can go to 200 million. And this graph is, I mean, online, it's in a bunch of places, but this really shows that idea is a very small portion of actually making a business a success. Execution and timing, you want to be lucky, but the execution and timing are big. Airbnb, I mean, how many people have thought about making a website where people can rent rooms? Thousands. I've even thought about that. Probably you guys have thought about that. But it was timing and execution. How many people have thought about making an app where you can just click a button and a taxi driver would come next to your house? I mean, thousands of people have thought about that, right? But getting that app to be so beautiful, so nice, it was Uber. And they executed perfectly. They worked day and night, and now they're a multi-billion-dollar company. Same thing with many other companies. It's all about execution. There's hundreds of people who have ideas, thousands of people, and maybe one actually will succeed. And usually, people think it's just intelligence or talent. Yes, those are important, very important. But that tenacity and grit and actually wanting to succeed and just not giving up, never giving up and wanting to get there, you also want to be flexible, because somebody who doesn't change and tries the same thing over and over again is, in my opinion, stupid or dumb. But you want to be able to change, but you don't want to give up. So you want to change and alternate and constantly go to that goal that you want to achieve. So that's a really, really good slide. Then people, how many of you actually, there's a really good book called Lean Startup. It's a really good book. You've read it. How many of you have read Lean Startup, or anybody? Okay. So what is it? Just a way to actually start a company in a really, really lean way and not go crazy spending money and doing things. You want to go out there with a minimum viable product. But how many people believe that going out there with a minimum viable product that's going to lead to success? Okay. That's one. But I think the best way to put it is going with a minimum viable and useful product. Today, there are hundreds and hundreds of products on Kickstarter and Indiegogo and online with gadgets of every kind that you can think of. But are they really useful? Probably not. Unless they're useful, unless you're adding value to the user, unless users really love that product and actually use it every day. I mean, I think I read Google's formula is if somebody is using our app more than they're eating food, more than 3-4 times a day, that's the app or that's the product they're going after. If it's less than that, they don't want to even touch it. So it's something that's really useful. There's I haven't read it, but I listened to an interview by David Koch, the guy who, the Koch industry, Koch brothers. He wrote a book called Good Profit, and what he means is you can actually make profit by adding a lot of value to others. And when you add a lot of value to users, they're willing to pay you. But if you just go after there and go and start making, oh, I'm going to make money as people, just fool a lot of people and trick a lot of people to click so I can make 100 grand, that's a really short, you can actually do that short term, but then long term you won't grow as a business. And the only way you grow long term as a business is if you add value. So it has to be useful. How many have seen this movie? Okay, what does Jordan Belfort say, right? when you go in a meeting, when you go in an interview, you want to be sharp as a tack. You want to be enthusiastic, because you can be sharp as a tack, know your subject really, really well. But if you're dull and boring, oh, you can do this, yeah, that's you want to be enthusiastic about what you're talking about. You want to enjoy what you're doing. That's when people really see what you're actually excited, and they want to buy that product from you, because enthusiasm sells. And authority are forced to be reckoned with. You want to look decent. I mean, you want to dress up nicely, so that it's not your. I mean, it's up to you. It doesn't really matter at the end. But I think to be sharp as a tack, know your subject line. When they ask a question, be able to respond right away. Be enthusiastic about the subject and look decent. But it doesn't always apply. There's some exceptions to the rule. How many have seen this movie? If you have millions of users and people are flocking and you really create a useful product, maybe sometimes it doesn't matter. This is when Mark went to Sequoia Capital, and it's kind of a true story. But those are rare cases. Those are rare cases. But I'm 100% sure he was enthusiastic and it was sharp as a tack when they asked him any question about Facebook. That's kind of one story. When you should start planning, I want to share is, when do you guys think you should start thinking about these things and planning about these things and figuring out what your career is going to be? Yesterday. Someday. Some people say someday, but if you look at the calendar, there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There is no someday. So is yesterday. The best one is now. And the way I like this is a really good story I like is about now. And that is, in Africa, or there's a lot of other places where lions and gazelles live. But when a gazelle wakes up in the morning, the first thing the gazelle does, it has to run faster than the fastest lion. Otherwise, that gazelle will be dead. When the lion wakes up in the morning, when the sun shines, the first thing that the lion has to do is run and faster than the slowest gazelle, so that actually they can catch and eat and not starve and die. So the moral of the story is, whether you're a lion or a gazelle in this world, it doesn't matter. The moment you wake up, the moment that sun shines, you start running. And you start running, and that means, what I take it as, you do it now, you start running, and you constantly make progress in your life. It's about moving forward and not resting. Otherwise, you know what happens. And the last thing is, we had show up. You showed up on time. You showed up with a plan, and you have to do what at the end? Execute. Take action and get involved. That's the only way. The journey, you've heard this a million times, journey of 1,000 miles starts with what? One step. And you have to take that action. If somebody didn't, if they showed up on time, they showed up with the plan, without taking that one step, that 1,000 miles is going to look really far away. But you have to take that. These are some of the books that I've read, some recently. The one that I read recently is Not Fade Away. How many of you know Chris Sacca? Nobody. He's like a billionaire. He invested on Twitter. He invested on a bunch of companies. But Not Fade Away, he recommended this book, so I read it. It's this guy who, it's a little sad story. He started Liberty Media, a multi-billion-dollar company, but he's dying from cancer. He knows he's dying, and he wrote a book with a friend of his. And then his friend finishes it, pretty much the last 10 pages of the book when he's dead. But it's a really good book, what actually matters in life. It talks about business, it talks about fun stuff, and then talks about family and other things too. So it's a really good book. It's really touching. How to Win Friends and Influence Others, really good book. I read that when I was young. Outliers, that's a really good book too, by Malcolm Gladwell. And Magic of Thinking Big. Always think big. I know Donald Trump says that, but this book is a little better than his books, I think. Yeah. And check that playbook by Sam Altman. I think it's very exciting. So that's all. Thanks. just 2 minutes or 1 minute if you guys have any questions. Any questions?
Why only startups?
Myself.
Yes.
Why only startups? I guess I got the bug. And I got the bug when I was very young. When I was 16, I joined a company back home. I'm originally from Kosovo, and we were starting a TV station. There was no Albanian TV stations in Kosovo, and I got involved, and I did all the 3D graphics, you know, when you turn CNN, things spin around. And it was a small team, and being able to do that and actually contribute right away, because that's a small team, in a big company, and you see that within 2-3 months, seeing that live and getting hundreds and thousands of people seeing your work right away was very fulfilling. And being able to make decisions and your decisions and being to influence things so that that company grows, that's where I got the bug. And it's tough to see that in a large company, at least when you start. Yeah.
So if you're looking to go work at a startup, you're not necessarily starting up a company, how do you look for some of those traits you mentioned in that company? Like if you're going into a company, you're trying to join a potentially a startup company, how do you look for the traits of of execution and having a plan and all those things when you're looking to be hired?
That's a very good question. I think you cannot make that decision right away in one day. I think it would be good to maybe just sit down and figure out if you can actually go and get involved with the team. I'm sure they appreciate it if somebody's coming for free to work for a week. I know there are startups in Somerville area where you can actually go once a month. You can just go in and see what they're doing. And you actually see people, how they're working and how they're executing, and you can tell by it. Just trust your gut there too. You can tell if they're really executing or they're just bumming out and doing nothing and going to Facebook and watching YouTube videos. So that'll tell you a lot. Yeah.
So what sorts of industries have the startups that you've been working in?
Okay. Start TV was the one. Then this one was semiconductor industry, so Fabulous Semiconductor, building chipsets. Then I worked on, started a company with a partner building compact flash and PC card memory. So we did the design, we did the packaging, we shipped around 20,000 units annually. So that was one. And then I did web development, built around 40-50 websites, hired people in India, and I realized that my hourly rate there was ridiculously low, so I left that, sold it to my partner. And after that, got involved with indoor location, Wi-Fi stuff with a startup, and then a startup doing consulting for other companies, doing chip development for other companies, some business development and marketing, and now doing I started something, it's in extremely stealth mode. I would love to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it maybe in a few months, but not now. So that's what I've done.
All right, I'm going to keep this very informal because I know it's late and I know everybody's tired. I'm going to go through the presentation, but feel free to ask questions anytime, keep it open forum. So how many of you have heard about emotional intelligence? Oh, good, good. I'm going to go through a very brief, what's emotional intelligence, EI, EQ, what are the key components of it, and then I was going to spend a little bit of time doing self-assessment, but I'm going to leave the handout. John, he has them for you, and he'll distribute them on the way out. But I'll kind of walk you through what it is, about like how do you assess yourself, and then I'll give you some tips on how do you implement it, whether it's self-awareness or in an environment, whether it's social, whether you're working on a project together or even in a work environment. And then how do you manage other people's reactions? Because that's a huge part of being aware. And then overcoming conflict, because anytime you're dealing with different personalities, you're going to have conflicts. So there is effective ways that you can communicate that can at least ease the tension. You might not be able to solve everything, because everybody, there's the type A people, there's the people that are quick to anger, but if you figure out how to calm them down, how to approach them, you can get them to do what you want them to do. And then if we have time, we'll do the group role play. If not, then we'll skip it, and we'll wrap it up. So I saw a few of you raise your hands. So what is emotional intelligence? What's your definition of emotional intelligence? Without looking at that. Go ahead.
How to understand people and not intentionally or unintentionally make them just feel terrible.
Okay. Any others? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about emotional intelligence. Is about how to manage yourself in a social environment so that you can succeed at whatever it is you're trying to achieve, whether it's a successful project or an entrepreneur, if you're starting a new business or just trying to get ahead in the company you're with. How do you work with the people around you and present yourself in the best way? What it is it allows you to, everybody has emotions. Women get, flagged for it pretty easily, but men have their emotions too. They show it differently. But it's all about how do you harness those emotions to present yourself in the best way. There's going to be things that upset you, but how do you react to it? That's going to be the key. Do you lash out at people, or do you count to 10, calm down, and then come up with whatever way, use your words instead of your anger to communicate what the intent is. And then there's some basic assumptions about emotional intelligence. It is very important, and I think as engineers, we get told that you don't have the social skills, you don't have. So this is just bringing another realm of awareness about how do you interact with other people. With engineers, we're not just working on a project, we're not just working on circuit boards. At some point in our career, we have to work with other people. And how we manage our relationships with other people is going to be a huge, huge influence in whether we move up or we stay where we are. It's not about being passive aggressive. It's not like about agreeing with someone and then lashing out, when they're not expecting. So the key components are, there's 4 different areas. There's the personal aspect of emotional intelligence, which is self-awareness and self-management. And then there's the social aspect of it, which is being aware of your environment and managing those relationships. So here's I'm not going to go through this whole chart, but it kind of gives you an idea of how do you manage yourself and how do you manage others. And when you're managing yourself, you're controlling your own emotions. When you're managing others, you have to use some of your other skill sets, like listening. Even when the person's irate at you, if you're listening to them, they're gonna say, okay, even if we don't agree on something, this person's taking the time to listen to me, and maybe they'll change their mindset. So when you're managing yourself, you have to do it with the attitude to improve. When you're managing others, you're trying to develop a teamwork environment. Then the second part of it is understanding, right? And I'm not saying everybody's going to be on the same plane, right? You may have more understanding of the situation than the other person, but at least if you're doing it, you'll be able to manage yourself and the situation better. And then when you're working in a large organization, it's going to be an important part because perception is 9/10 of the law, right? If I could be the hardest working person, but if the perception is that I'm coming in 5 minutes late and leaving right at 4 o'clock, and the perception is going to be I'm not doing my job or I'm not putting in the time. But I might have done a lot of work during the 8 hours that I was there, but the person that came in at 7:30 in the morning and stays until 5:30, even though they might be on the internet or whatever, it's perception. And perceptions are very important when we're dealing with an organization. So you'll want to understand that, whether it's in academia or even in the business world. Then social awareness, there's 3 key components to it. Empathy, which is sensing others' emotions, and sometimes it's not always about giving them a free pass to do whatever, but it's being human and being understanding that things do happen in people's lives. You're acknowledging their emotions, but still holding them to the standards that you need them to perform at. So you understand their perspective, but you also show concern. And that will get them to be on your side, And organizational awareness, I think this is something that if you're working in a huge company, I work for a consulting firm, and we've had a few mergers, so what I'm talking about when I say organizational awareness, it's about reading the currents, what's happening around you. What's, when your companies are merging, everybody's worried about their jobs. How do you find, what's your group situation going to be like when the companies are merging? And it's being able to understand what's happening culturally in your organization, as well as the dynamics. You could be the best worker, but if the whole manufacturing part of your organization is getting outsourced, then it's better not to wait around until layoffs come or furloughs come. It's better to start looking for something else. But it's a matter of building those relationships and understanding what's happening. And a lot of times you learn that from informal conversations. So, and then service, recognizing and meeting customers, clients, and followers' needs. And this is something that you'll see more in the business world. And it's just raising awareness. How many times nowadays you hear about social awareness and social responsibility? Almost every big organization, every big company has a special group assigned to building the company brand and what they're doing for the social environment. So that's becoming a huge thing. And then finally, the relationship management. Inspirational leadership. You heard Krenar talk a little bit about leadership. And these are all the things that are going to be affected by how well you communicate and how well you handle yourself and your emotions. How do you influence people? How do you develop other people? And how do you manage conflicts? And I think everybody dislikes the word conflict, but it's a reality. It happens. And the better we get at handling the conflicts, how we address them, is going to make us more successful. And then, like I said earlier, building relationships and building bonds, building connections. I mean, just by being here, you're already meeting a lot of the key people in industries and getting a lot of new ideas about what's happening in the industry, a lot of the entrepreneurships that Krenar shared, and then just you showing up, right? And the last one is teamwork and collaboration, and I'm sure you do that a lot in your academia, but it's a huge part when you're working with a team for a company as well. So one of the things that you want to be aware of is what sets you apart. And the top performers, the differentiators are going to be, how do you communicate? How do you influence people? How do you manage conflict thing keeps on coming up, huh? And then create win-win situations. And then here are, I'm not going to go through any of these, but I'm sure you've seen some of these in your projects, in your personal lives, and even whatever other things you may have pursued. But these are some of the things that take you off the path. So I said we were going to skip the self-assessment, but I'll just give you a brief overview of what you want to do. There's a handout. It's about a 4-page handout, and there's a bunch of questions that ask you to just check what is it, and you want to go through it pretty quickly. And then once you go through it, there's sections that, depending on what you choose as a response, it's kind of like a Myers, help me out here, Myers-Briggs. So it's similar to that, but it'll help you understand whether you're actually, how aware are you of your emotions, and where do you fall into whether you're a good listener, or how do you manage your emotions, whether you're doing a good job, or where can you improve. And then it'll help you identify your strengths and weaknesses for future improvement. So I said I was going to leave you guys with a few tips. So some of the tips that I came across in my own challenges of understanding emotional intelligence, and you don't ever want to go with your first reaction, because you want to, so a lot of people say that there's something to instinct, or what's the word I'm trying to think of? Intuition, right? So there is something called intuition, but your first reaction in a situation may not be the correct one, because someone might have been saying something to agitate you, so you don't know all the dynamics. So you want to take a step back and think. I'm not saying that the first one might not be the best idea, but you want to take a step back and evaluate all of your choices before you make a decision and say something. One of the things that I've always used, especially in meetings and like when there's decisions being made and you're being asked to make a decision quickly, especially in a meeting setting where you have a lot of the clients there as well, you don't want to say something that your company's not on board with. So you're always allowed to take notes and say, we'll get back to you. There's nothing that, they don't have to have a response right away. And then the count to 10, we already talked about it a little bit, but sometimes it's okay to know that you're upset and you need to calm down before you make a decision. And then using delaying tactics, excusing yourself. It's always a good idea to ask clarifying questions as well. Especially I've seen this in my personal life where you might be perceiving something that isn't what the person meant, whether it's cultural differences or just language differences. Somebody might be intending to say something, but it's just they're not using the right words. And you're listening to them and you're getting, really concerned about what they're saying. So it's always a good idea to ask did you really mean this? There's nothing wrong with clarifying what your understanding of the situation is. And then take notes. You can always go back to someone. And then here's a short, like a 4-step process that I heard a presentation about emotional intelligence, and that's where I got this idea from. And it's capturing moments of awareness. So the 4 questions that you want to ask yourself: what is happening right now? In any kind of situation, if you're trying to be more aware of your emotional intelligence and like your reactions, what is happening right now? what do I want right now, right? If something that's happening is a conflict, but you need the result, the end result is you need to work with that person, you need to keep that in mind. Because you getting angry with them, shouting at them, isn't going to make them want to work with you. So if you need them to work with you, keep that in mind. What do I want right now? And what I'm doing right now to prevent myself from getting what I want. So, the same example, if I'm working with someone and we have a falling out, are we going to work it out? Are we going to talk to each other and figure it out? Or are we going to walk away from each other? And if we walk away from each other, am I going to finish the project? Am I going to, is it really going to serve the end purpose? And then sometimes just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and move on. Sometimes you can't solve the situation, and sometimes it's okay to, move away. But really understand what it is that's happening right now and if it's going to help your end goal. And then, some of the things that you want to, when you're talking about emotional intelligence, you want to use the I statements, right? I am hearing this. I am understanding this. If you say you did this, you're automatically putting the other person on a defensive. You're already creating a situation that is conflict. But if you say, I feel this, or you're taking the ownership, and that will help because then the other person lets their guard down too. And verbalize a solution, even if you're angry with the person, look, I understand we don't see something the same way, but here's what we need to accomplish. Can we get past this? Can we, be okay with verbalizing the commitment, that your commitment to getting it done. And then, how many of you have heard the phrase umbrella question? Anybody? It's basically what the other person has said, but saying, is this what you meant? It's just reaffirming what the other person has said and saying that what your understanding of it is. So, and then, I shouldn't have the word her in there, but reframe the position. So sometimes, I don't have a good example, but when we get to the scenario, maybe we'll come across it, where you want to put yourself in the other person's shoes, right? If what happened to the other person to make them upset happened to you, would you be upset too? So that's what it means, reframe the position. Put yourself in the other person's shoes, would that upset you as well? And that will help you understand them and what they may be feeling. And then ask for ideas. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I don't have a solution to this, do you? What can you do to help fix this situation or
overcome this issue?
Exactly. And then state your solutions and benefits. How are we on time?
As much time as you need.
Oh, okay. All right. So here's I don't know, how you want to break up into teams of 4? Is there enough people? And then I'll leave the role play up here, but essentially there's different people. One person's getting promoted, the other person, they used to be peers, and now one person's getting promoted, the other person's not, and it creates an environment. So read through the scenario and see how you can role play it. Would you be upset if you were, sorry about the names, feel free to change them. But how would you handle yourself in this situation? How can you communicate your position to the other person? So, 5 minutes?
Do you want to maybe talk about this as we're kind of running a little low on numbers? Do you want to talk about how people might encounter, how much people might deal with this situation a little bit? Like,
Sure.
does anyone have any ideas about how to sort of deal with this situation in terms of like interacting with someone who was promoted, etc.? Any ideas at all?
So I'll go back to this. We can read through it. So one person is, here. So there's three main people, and then one of them is the observer. There's the boss, there's the employee, and the observer. And basically, but let me go away from this a little bit. So there's three people, right? If you let's say the two of you are working together when you start off, both of you started an internship together, and all of a sudden he got promoted. You guys did the same job, same amount of years, but he got promoted. And not only did he get promoted, now that he's promoted, you're working for him. You guys were friends before. What are the emotions there?
At first I would probably be a little upset, like, oh, I didn't get that position, but I would congratulate him on getting a position. Oh, good job, you deserved it. It's going to be my pleasure to work for you.
But he was slacking all the time. Now what? Now what's your reaction?
Now I'd be upset.
Not really.
Okay. So, how would you handle you being upset? So I'll give you one scenario, right? I'm going to pretend to be you. I'm working for him now, even though we started together. All of a sudden, he comes to me with a project, and I'm like, okay, I'll get to it. He doesn't give me any direction, so I'm like, okay, I'll sit on it for a while. He comes back a week later. Oh, you mean you wanted it done yesterday? Am I being compliant?
No.
Am I supporting him in what he's trying to do? Is he communicating effectively with me? Did he set any deadlines when he gave me the projects? Okay, so there's a whole lot of different components to it, right? Part of me I'm being passive aggressive when I'm not responding to him as a boss, because I still think of him as a friend, and it's okay, we'll get to it when and how many times have you seen that happen? I've seen that happen in our industry, and people do get passed over for jobs. People that know people end up getting promoted a lot quicker than people that work hard and stick to the letter of the law. But I think the key thing about emotional intelligence is I think you did a very good job in the very like how yes, you would have been upset, but you're going to set that aside and still congratulate him until something happens that might change your mind.
Managing the mind, managing the situation.
Exactly. So
Kevin might have had a drink.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I would want to go and talk to this person who was previously my friend and now is my boss. I would want to go talk to them directly. I wouldn't want to try and go around them or politic them through like a higher up manager or something like that, because it really is an issue between me and them.
Yep.
So shouldn't bring other people into it and increase or decrease efficiency as a result.
Okay, that's a good point. That's not a lot of people do that. I think the first reaction that people have is, wait, how come he got promoted? Let me go talk to the supervisor. How come I didn't get it? And that's real. But that's a great approach. That's good. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you so much. I know it was kind of late and
Thank you so much. So just as a couple pieces of wrap up, I guess the idea today was just be sure that you try to be a leader in pretty much everything that you do. You can be a leader whether you're working as a member of the team or whether you're leading the team. And then also just being aware of both your emotional responses and then the emotional responses of others in situations, and that'll really take you far as we're going forward.
I hope that you enjoyed the program. This committee's been going on for 35 years now, and it really started off, our conferences were really the key avenue that students would like to get involved with IEEE and getting the soft skills development and so forth. So as Nicole mentioned earlier, we're looking for your input to drive the program forward, to really define what it'll be for the next 35 years. And really, I mean, as everything is dynamic, conferences we're learning aren't necessarily the avenue people are going today, seeing as you have all the online web presence for many of the conferences. So whatever you come up with, we encourage you to come out tomorrow at 3:30. There's been a room change. It won't be here. It'll be over on the other side. So keep an eye out for the signs. We'll make sure that we have it so that you can find it. And come on down and tell us what you thought about this event, what you would have done differently, any ideas you might have. And just some of the things that come out of it is we are recording them for YouTube videos that we can post up so that other people that want to run these various programs have something to look at and say this is what it consists of. You are the key players in this. You know, you're the future leaders of the IEEE, of organizations around the world, in your careers and everything else. So, you know, I give you guys the round of applause for coming out. You guys, this really will thank you. Thank you, and I hope to see you guys tomorrow at 3:30 and throughout the day. So, enjoy the conference.
Thank you.
Thank you.